go, baby!
TikTok, it's time to rock. What a great intro for this show, ladies and gentlemen. What a great intro. Brad, the backdoor man, he's up there on the level 1 with me and down below holding us up with his guns, his hoss. There he is. We're with the Brad Cook t-shirt on.
You know what would have been funnier? I should have got a big beach ball like the 5150 album and held you guys up like you were the ball. There you go.
Oh my Lord, it's good to see you guys.
Good to see you too, fella.
Unbelievable intro there, Hoss. Awesome.
Oh, thanks. You know, I just thought it would make sense if we're going to talk about the record, have some music that's that comes from this show, basically that we've made. So yeah, it's a fun.
Unreal.
Awesome. I look forward to talking about this album. Guys, we're streaming also on a couple of platforms, and I see that we've got someone from Facebook jumping in with a hello, baby. So we're streaming on the 5150 Show Facebook group. Join us over there. We're also streaming on all things Eric Clapton, the British Electric Blues Show, and here on YouTube. So please, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do. We look forward to catching up with you guys. We've got some really cool shows, especially on the 5150 side of things, Hoss, lined up, haven't we? So
absolutely,
it's going to be a great time. So thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining in. Everyone there in the live chat. Brad will do a shout out a little bit later, and this is going to be a fun one, boys. Talking about the 5150 album, right hot on the heels, as you said, Andrew, of the 1984 record. It's really the passing of the baton, isn't it? It's the changing of the guard, and both two completely unique and incredible albums, and all for different reasons.
Yeah. I'm just going to jump in before Brad makes a comment and just say, look, the contrasting between this album that we're going to talk about today and the album that we spoke about last week, just is remarkable. Great albums. One album dominated by tension, dominated by division and rivalry. Yeah. And this album dominated by Hoss in the green room. You were talking about it, Brad, wasn't it? He was brothers in love, brothers in arms, a different perspective.
100%, bro. It's the energy of both two awesome albums, and obviously their chart positions ended up being pretty similar as well. So they both did really, really well, but one of them was almost like a breakup record, and the other one was a new love affair, and it's just really, really interesting. I mean, really, you've got on the back of the 6 albums with Roth and the ending of that relationship, not only do you have a brand new singer and this new love affair that went both ways, and I've got some great quotes that I'll read out in a minute from Sammy talking about what he thought of the boys when he first met them, but also what the boys thought of Sammy when they first started working with him, which is really interesting to see and read, But, you've got a brand new singer. You've also got a new studio. You've got a new producer for the very, very first time ever with Van Halen. And you've got Eddie using a brand new guitar with different pickups that were completely different sounding to anything he had ever used since the 70s. So you've got like all these brand new colors to sort of whack people over the head with, So that's why this album is completely unique, even amongst all the Sammy Hagar era stuff to me.
Yeah, I feel the same way, guys. Hoss, you mentioned that it's like that new romance. It's like a new romantic sort of album that the guys are getting along. There's romance in the music. You can hear it. They're just, the energy is fresh. It's like the honeymoon period. It's like that crossover, the passing of the baton. As you said, it's a wonderful album.
Yeah, it's got all the elements, and it's weird. And look, I consider myself extremely lucky, and you guys have heard me talk a little bit about this already on previous episodes, where at the age that I discovered Van Halen and when my guitar teacher made me a mixtape, hey, we got Jay Hannon there saying raid. My guitar teacher made me a mixtape, and it was all a mixture of the David Lee Roth stuff plus the 5150 album. So in a way, I escaped that being like an 18-year-old fan who was having to relearn the sound of Van Halen in a way, you know. I'll be forever grateful for that, because I think that would have been really hard for me, because I know what my personality is like, and I like things the way they are, the way that I already like them, you know. So for example, if I was my age now and I was a huge Van Halen fan and 5150 had to come out with a new producer, new singer, and new guitar sound, man, I don't know how I would have really got my head around that, but because I didn't have to, I feel really lucky, you know.
Yeah. I agree. I agree, Brad.
Yeah, I feel the same way, Hoss. You know, I was in that crossover period. I got into this album in particular, you know, before I actually got heavily into 1984. So it's the David Lee Roth era. So for me, there was no real problem for me to have to accept the fact that there was a new singer or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm the resident old fart, guys. So I was the guy lining up buying these albums when they came out, and these two co-hosts of mine, these young fellas, you know, they had to hear it a few. They had to hear it a few years later. You see, so but look, I agree with you guys. And I've said this before on previous shows. We didn't get a lot of this information, Brad and Hoss and people in the chat. We didn't know what the stories were happening. We didn't have the internet back then, so we didn't know. But you know, I was saying to the guys before in the green room, and I was just doing a bit of research and preparation for this week's show. I didn't realize actually how many music critics and how many established music writers out there panned this album and didn't like the idea, Hoss. They didn't like the idea of Sammy Hagar, who played in this band Montrose, this has-been kind of used band, teaming up with Van Halen.
Yeah, well, look, we know that Montrose was around in the early 70s. Andrew, do you happen to know when Montrose began? What year would that have been?
Oh, I don't know when they began. I don't know.
Neither do I. But it must have been early, because if Ted Templeman was working with them in the early 70s, I mean, when he says early 70s, I'm gathering that means 71 or 2. So, you know, that's a band that had definitely been around. But yeah, if anyone in the chat knows the answer to when Montrose, when they released their first record, I'd be very curious in that, actually.
Yeah. And one thing that's really kind of interesting.
73, he thinks.
Okay, well, Nelson's never wrong, so we'll
73.
Yeah, and we've got Robot Master Switch in the chat too. But
hey, Robot.
One thing that that really kind of interested me, Hoss. Robot Master Switch jumping in the chats made me forget my point. Oh Lord, this is what happens when you get a bit carried away.
Well, that's okay. While you're thinking of your point, Andrew, can I ask you then, what was it like for you, being a few years older than me and Brad, when you heard that Van Halen were getting a new singer and had you know, all what we just talked about, new producer, new studio, new everything? Was that freaky for you at the time? Like, how was that?
It broke my heart. It broke my heart, bro. That Van Halen were falling apart. It broke my heart. And then we heard the single, which was released, the first single off the album. Why Can't This Be Love?
Yeah.
When we heard that, Hoss, all fears were allayed, as they say.
Really? So, even though it was really synthesizer based and quite poppy for Van Halen, it was still such a good song and was performed so perfectly that that put your fears away straight away, did it?
Look, I think what you have to remember, and we spoke about this a little bit last week when we did the 1984 album with the synthesizers and all that. That music was right in the middle of the top 20, the top 40, the top 50. So it wasn't out of place, and it was something that that young people were attuned to. I thought of my point that I was going to make before when I forgot my point. If you allow me, please, to raise my point again. So one of the reasons why this version of Van Halen did so well too, in my research, is that a few of the young people that were in and around MTV at the time got onto the band. The people that were behind MTV. So despite what some of the established music critics were saying about Sammy and the album, in the end, it was the music fans of MTV and the young people, the music fans in general, that bought the album, Brad. At the end of the day, the music spoke.
Yep.
Yeah, 100%. Look, I think, listening to this album again this week, I think what happened to me is I realized a fair few different things that I'd never really picked up on before. And one of them being that, their songwriting had changed a lot with Sammy. I think his maturity brought a different level of songwriting to the band. So as much as I love all the Roth era stuff, I just think that they evolved on this record to become like a better version of themselves as a band. I just thought they were better songwriters. They were highlighting each member of the band as part of the song, not necessarily like a standout. Like Eddie was always standing out in the song, where it was every member sort of raised, if that makes sense. Like they were all equal, kind of like a 4-part band instead of it being Ed and the band, or David Lee Roth and the band sort of thing.
Yeah, and you got to remember too that Sammy is quoted as saying at the time, he fully understood that there would be a backlash to him personally being the new singer, which is expected. And I believe Sammy's words were along the lines of, look, I know that there are going to be people that hate the new singer. It's like the stepmom that comes in kind of syndrome, He said, but what all you fans have got to know is this is the music that Ed presented me with. He said, I came up with some melodies and some lyrics. He goes, but this is the music that Edward wanted to make. Yeah. So it was, of course, Sammy's in there writing with them, but really like chordally and harmonically and groove wise, it's still Ed and Al, it's not like Sammy came in and took over, if that's what people thought at the time, because that's obviously completely not what happened. So, Sammy's pretty quick to point out that it's still the music that Ed presented him with in the beginning,
Yeah.
So
100%. So should we just give a shout out to people in the chat? I can see a lot of people in there just having a little bash around and having a chat. So I thought maybe I'll jump on that. So we've got Arvin in the chat. We've got Mark Tanner. We've got Johnny Bean. We've got my mother, Ellen Forishan, who's here every week. Helen O'Hara, Robot Master Switch. We've got Mark Tanner. We've got Kurt 5150.
Hey.
John ZD351. Our brother John. He's our art guy. He's putting together some good stuff. I noticed in the chat before he was talking about trying to put your head on the album cover, Simon, but he couldn't find it.
I didn't see that. I missed that.
Yeah. So we've got Tim Thomas, Nelson. We've got Charlie S. We've got who else have we got? We've got Jay in the chat. We've got Charmaine. We've got lots of people. I can't keep up.
Gretch Zeppelin's in there.
Yeah, we've got Gretch Zeppelin. We've got Thomas Santiago.
Woohoo!
I can't see anyone else, guys. If I've missed you, I apologize, but we'll get back to you at the end of the show.
We'll do another shout out at the end, so we'll definitely get to you.
Awesome.
Well, look, I mean, obviously we've already been kind of prepping the ground a little bit with our sort of round table right now. But, you know, for anyone that's not as familiar with some of these behind the scenes stuff that was happening, why don't I just spend 1 or 2 minutes and we'll talk about some of the other more interesting stuff and maybe a couple of, like I was saying, some fun quotes from Sammy and Ed and the boys of what they thought of each other when they first met, you know, and it'll set the tone for ranking some tracks because most of us already know and love these songs. So it's going to be very interesting to see everybody's scores. But, you know, so one of the stories that's really funny about when they first met, most people know that the idea to hook up with Sammy actually came from Ed's Lamborghini mechanic, who was the Italian guy, Claudio Zampoli. And apparently they were actually in the workshop and discussing it. And they got on the phone like straight away from the workshop. They called up Sammy, which is hilarious. Now, of course, they already knew each other because they had met back in 78. I believe Montrose and Van Halen were both on the same bill with Sabbath, if I recall that correctly. And so they had met back then. And actually, Ed and Al had been listening to some old Montrose stuff. So they were telling Sammy about that, apparently backstage. But, and of course, Van Halen's longtime producer, Ted Templeman, with all the Roth stuff, had known Sammy and Montrose from way back. I think John ZD was saying the first couple of Montrose albums were like 73 or 74, around then, you know, which sounds about right. So really, Ted Templeman and Ed and the boys had known Sammy. They'd known of Sammy for a very long time, but I just like the way it happened to be a you know, a luxury supercar mechanic that actually was the one that inspired the idea to hook up. But before that, you know, they'd actually looked at some very curious options. Most of us know they looked at Patti Smythe from Scandal. And anyone that's not immediately familiar with that would definitely remember the song The Warrior, which I used to love. I used to love that song. Yeah. And she's got that gravelly kind of voice. I could hear that actually almost. And apparently the boys wanted her really bad. It was actually her that turned them down. So that's interesting. They looked at some other people too. They looked at the Australian singer Jimmy Barnes from Cold Chisel. And they looked at, there was someone else they looked at, which is escaping me now too. Daryl Hall. I couldn't believe when I read they looked at Daryl Hall from Hall & Oates as well. So, but anyway, so the hookup with Sammy came to be. And so, but Sammy had been hearing all sorts of horror stories, of course, about how the 1980, like just the interpersonal relationships and the bickerings and stuff. So he thought, you know, I think I'm going to take my manager down to meet you guys and just see what sort of condition you're in. Cause I think he'd also heard that they were working all hours, you know, and going pretty hard. And I've actually got a quote here that I'm going to read from Sammy, which is hilarious and cracks me up. He said, he didn't know what to expect. So, you know, he got all dressed up in his cool, like black Armani suit, you know, to be sort of Mr. Hip Rock. And he went down to the studio and he in quotes, he says, it was the worst little 5150 studio was like the worst little dive bar on the planet. It stunk like shit and had empty whiskey bottles, beer bottles, and cigarette butts everywhere. And he just couldn't believe that the massive album 1984 was recorded in that tiny little stinky place. And he said when he arrived with his manager, Ed Leffler, Eddie had just gotten out of bed, was drinking a beer and having a cigarette. Mike hadn't been home from the night before, and Alex was still drunk. And he thought to myself, man, I thought I was rock and roll. This is real rock and roll, you know? And hearing Sammy tell that story was cool. But anyway, they got jamming and instantly, as most of us now know and have read, hit it off musically straight away. So they were jamming and, you know, one of the things that Sammy said about what he loved about the Van Halen sound is because Eddie was using a lot of major chords and a lot of rock at that time. Even the Foreigner stuff that Mick Jones was producing was really minor chord based, minor keys, you know, because it sounded a bit darker and heavier. But, you know, you've got the thunder of Alex and the pounding bottom end of Mike. And then you've got Ed playing all these kind of almost pop sweet major chords on top. And for Sammy, he said that was the thing that really hooked him in musically. He said he loved the way it sounded sweet but heavy at the same time, you know. So anyway, so that was done. They decided to make a record together. But of course, it's still not all was smooth sailing. There's still some hiccups because it is Van Halen after all. You know, it still had all the problems that we know from recording the 1984 record because the studio was tiny. They had a $6,000 desk in there, which I think they still had for 5150. If anyone knows if they'd upgraded it by that album, please say so in the chat because I haven't been able to find that. But I imagine they probably thought that worked pretty well. Let's stick with that. And they still had the really, really small drum room space where Alex had his Simmons pads set up because they couldn't fit his whole drum kit. And they had his amp, of course, and a few things. So they were sticking with the Simmons and their way of doing things. But Ted Templeman, who, of course, they wanted to produce the record just like the previous 6, said that if you I'm not going to do it if you call the band Van Halen still, because he was so tight with Roth that to him, without Roth, it wasn't Van Halen, you know, in quotation marks. So Ted was saying you got to change the name of the band. Naturally, as you would imagine, Eddie and Alex did not want to change the name of the band since it's their name. And I believe that's the main reason that Ted ended up walking. Ed's also quoted as saying that he just Ted was doing other things and working with Roth, and he was just taking too long to get back to him, and that didn't help. But I think the main reason was that Ted didn't want to do it unless they changed the name, which obviously wasn't going to happen. So it was Sammy that decided to bring in Mick Jones from Foreigner to produce the record. And of course, the sound of the 5150 album has a completely different sound to all the previous 6 records. So you can really hear his influence. Also, Ed had found some new toys. He had the Steinberger with the trans trem, but more than that, for the first time ever, he was recording with active pickups through his Marshall, the EMGs that the Steinberger had. So the sound was completely different. And you can hear it straight away. It's fizzier. It almost sounds like a fuzz pedal, you know? Yeah. It doesn't have a vintage Marshall sound anymore, even though I do believe that he was still using his plexi as the tone generator, you know? Yeah. So you've got all these things going on, but you did still Mick Jones, after they started working together, apparently the first thing that Mick heard is that because Sammy had convinced him to come and have a listen and they were going to jam. And the first thing they played Mick was Get Up, believe it or not. You'd think you'd play like a pop song to him to, you know, hook him in as the producer, but they played Get Up, to which he apparently just said, oh my God, that sounds like aliens have landed. He goes, if that's the kind of stuff you guys want to do, I'm in, you know? And actually another funny story is apparently the deal before that they kind of signed on the dotted line with Sammy, one of the things was Sammy wanted a pretty big cut of the royalties, which Warner Chappell, Van Halen's record company, had to let go of. So the chairman, Mo Austin, was convinced. He said, well, I've got to see this thing and hear it with my own ears first. So he got dragged down to the 5150 studio, which, again, I'm sure if you could be a fly on the wall would be a hilarious thing to watch. You got this big wig from Warner Chappell in this tiny little studio with cigarette butts everywhere at Eddie's house, convincing him to hand over all his money. Anyway, he apparently, the story goes, he bumped into Sammy Hagar a little bit later. He said they played him Why Can't This Be Love? And Mo Austin's words were, that smells like money to me. And so it was done. Even though he had to give away some of his coin, he thought, well, we're going to make so much that it won't matter. Although he bailed up Sammy Hagar at an awards night much later, and he leaned into his ear and he says, "You've cost me a lot of money, buddy."
Yeah. That's fantastic.
Which I just think fantastic.
Hey, I just want to interrupt. John's got a comment here, bro. He's saying that correct. OU812 is when they changed the board, so they were still using that console Hoss.
Thank you, John.
5150.
Yes, I knew one of you bright people in the chat would know the answer to that. Thanks, John. Yeah. So it's interesting. If you listen to the sound of 1984 and the sound of 5150, to think they were done with the same Marshall head and the same mixing desk is astounding to me. You know, it just really goes to show that it really comes from the hearts and minds of the people involved more than it comes from the equipment. you know.
Good point.
Yeah, it's anyway, one of the things that Sammy thought about working together straight away with them, he's quoted as saying they sounded like a super modern Cream. That was kind of one of the things that he thought. And then apparently they were another quote from Sammy about how the boys felt about him. He said they were really freaking out when they heard me sing. They were saying, "Holy shit, this guy's got rhythm, great pitch, and a range from hell." I could pick up a guitar and say, "Well, what about a groove like this?" And Ed would just shout and smile and say, "Great, well then I'll jump on the synths." And he said we were all over the place. It was such an inspiration back and forth that it started to actually elevate all of our musical abilities. Everyone around us would get goosebumps. It was a truly magical time. So you can hear the love affair in the whole thing. You know, these guys were super into each other. You know, and Mick Jones apparently was saying also about Ed, which is a really interesting quote from him as a producer. He said basically Ed needed no producing at all from him. He said Ed would go into a trance when he played, and it reminded him of when he used to watch Hendrix playing live. It was mesmerizing. So, you know, you've got all of that. But look, I think there's probably only a couple of other things I'd like to say about the background of it before we maybe jump into some rankings. But, you know, talking about the love affair, Mick Jones in an interview was saying that they were having so much fun together at the time that after they'd spend the whole day writing and recording, they'd all get in their sports cars and go racing down Mulholland, apparently.
Yep.
And so you can just tell they were basically like 18-year-old boys again, you know. But there was still the occasions where Don Landee would lock himself in the control room and threaten to burn the master tapes, to which Mick Jones apparently was completely pulling his hair out. And Sammy had to take him aside all the time and say, "Mick, just trust me, bear with us. This will be worth it. This will totally be worth it." But Mick was like, "Man, these guys are crazy." You know? And I can imagine as a producer having the engineer threaten to burn the tapes all the time would be, I don't know how I would deal with that as a producer, that's for sure. But anyway, look, that's about it really. So this album was released in March 1986, and it only took 3 weeks to reach number 1.
Wow.
Which I mean, that just says it all, doesn't it? It's just, I think it came in at number 13 or 14 or something. So it went in pretty high.
Yep.
But to get to number 20. 1 in, yeah, right. To get to number 1 in just 3 weeks, that is absolutely unbelievable. And one of the other things that's worth mentioning on a tragic note that was going on a personal level behind the scenes is that Ed and Valerie actually lost a baby during the making of this record, which to me, that it didn't hold the record up or its release or its mixing or anything, it says so much about how tight Ed and Valerie must have been at the time, because I think if that was anyone else that I can think of, that would have meant the album would have just stopped, you know? Yeah. And for everyone really kind of knows this by now, but on a last little note about 5150, because this will come up again when we rank the song 5150, is that title, where that comes from and why Ed decided to call the album and his recording studio that, is it's actually the Californian police code for someone that's mentally unstable. And I guess considering what we now know about the recording of 1984 and now the 5150 record, it's perfect. It's completely perfect. And then, of course, you've got the Greek mythology with the artwork. You know, you've got Atlas trying to hold up. He's got the weight of the world on his shoulders, which I suppose is probably there you go, boys. is a visual metaphor for probably how Ed and Alex and Mikey felt at the time with Roth leaving, you know, and having a new producer they were unfamiliar with. And so on the back cover, how it's got them bursting out, like he couldn't hold up the weight of the world anymore. And the band's, there you go. Perfect. Is a great little kind of happy ending tag to the front cover. So it's actually really, really, really clever. But one more thing I'll say, and then I reckon we should get into it if you guys want to, is that interestingly, for the first time, the boys did not want to do any music videos for this whole record. They were really, really against it. And obviously what we know now about how big the MTV era was, it was just booming. And also on the back of with, you know, Hot for Teacher and Jump and all these music videos that were huge to then to make a decision to not do any. And obviously, as we know now, Dreams ended up getting put to the Navy squadron, the Blue Angels, and they used it, but it was still not really a music video. It was a last minute decision to basically stock footage from the 70s. It really wasn't a kind of a made and produced and directed music video in the sense that we know it from the 1984 record. So
it's interesting. It's interesting, Hoss, that you should mention that because, like I said a little bit earlier, it didn't stop MTV from talking about the album, though.
No,
the MTV presenters were talking about the album all the time. It's just one of those remarkable little things that happened. And thank you, Hoss, for pointing that out. That there were no official videos released. But again, where money is, and good music, it's always going to be, Brad, a situation that people can't escape but talk about.
Yeah, look, you're right. And of course, MTV being MTV, we're like, well, this is no good. We've got to find a way around this, especially because the album was #1. Their solution ended up being, although I didn't really know this at the time when I was young, but they actually were just plucking songs off live without a net and using those as single songs. Yeah. So that was their way around it. But the guys did no music videos as a band for that whole record to this day. Isn't that unbelievable?
It's unbelievable.
Yep.
Unbelievable.
It really is.
Is it true, Hoss, that Warner wanted to actually change the name of Van Halen to Van Hagar?
I don't know that. I haven't. Someone in the chat might know that, but yeah, I didn't read that anywhere. But
Andrew, have you heard that before?
No, I haven't heard that officially. I haven't read that anywhere officially. We've got some Van Halen scholars in the chat who might be able to confirm that. So if they can, but I haven't heard or read that officially. Well, one point though, guys, that I just want to tag on to Hoss's remarkable introduction. I just read where Micheal especially felt quite relieved. He felt the pressure off himself as a member of Van Halen when Roth left, and when Sammy came in, Sammy gave him an opportunity just as a musician to have a place that he could feel comfortable. And I think that's a part of the puzzle that we need to remember too, that Michael Anthony was considered, by the lead singer. No disrespect to David Lee Roth, but considered by Sammy to be, the key for this band moving forward, and gave him a pedestal to, stand up on.
Yeah, Andrew, you're 100% correct. I think that from some of the early interviews with the boys, just after Sammy Hagar had joined, I mean, both Michael and Alex and Ed all have been quoted and reported as saying that it's so nice to have a singer in the band that's not constantly telling them what to do, because apparently Roth was always telling them what to wear, how to act on stage, what to say in interviews. Like, he was really quite a dominant figure, which is easy to imagine, of course, with Roth. But and I think one of the things that I read that Sammy loved about Michael Anthony, like really loved him as much as Ed and Alex, is he had a backing singer that could sing thirds above him for once in his life, And obviously what we know now, all those crazy high vocals all sit above Sammy, and Sammy adored that about Mike. And obviously, look, their friendship is still going strong. So the proof is in the pudding that Michael and Sammy really did hit it off, even on a deeper level than the brothers, So yeah, you're right, Andrew, 100%. I think probably it was the first time that Michael Anthony really truly felt like a proper equal member of the band, because obviously with Roth, he wasn't the guy that was doing splits in the air or doing the pyrotechnics on the fretboard. And, in the words of him and Ed and Al, Roth was just always telling them what to do. And they were loving this breath of fresh air where they could just be like four guys in a band making great music.
Yeah.
So,
That's what I said.
And Nelson Rodriguez, you're 100%, man. I just, not ever in my life have I heard any human being say one bad word about Mikey. Not ever. So he must be a pretty sweet dude, because in this industry, there's always someone, that would say something, you know, even if it's that you didn't give them their change back after going to the cafe to get coffees. There's always something, you know. But well, fellas,
awesome.
I think that preps us very well for ranking some tracks. What do you think?
Let's dive
Yeah,
into
yeah.
it.
Yeah. Before you do that, though, bro, I just want to do a quick couple of shout outs. We've got 35 people watching us. Thank you all for the nice comments, guys, in the chat. I see you guys are commenting and talking to each other, and you're also giving us all pats on the back. We're just three guys, love talking about music, in particular the 5150 shows about Van Halen. If you guys have any music topics or bands yourself that you want to talk about, get a YouTube account, get together with a couple of friends and do what we're doing here. I was talking to a friend of mine on Instagram who loves Def Leppard. He'd love to do something like we do. I said, just do it, bro. Get out there and do it. Get some gear. You only need a mic, an interface, a computer host, get some friends and do it, because it's about talking about stuff that we love. And if it's about music, well, jeepers.
Exactly. There you go, Brad. Wearing my favorite T-shirt today.
Woo-hoo.
Hey, Nina. Thank you, Nina.
Much, bro. Thanks for wearing that.
So, hang on. Sorry, I just got to quickly scribble a note to myself.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, Andrew, just before we get into the ranking, you were mentioning if you wanted to play the thing I sent you at some point in the middle of the show. Feel free to do that whenever. Maybe we could do it when the record has to change sides or something if you want.
We'll see if we can do that, because I had an issue playing the longer one at the start of the show. So
you can play the short one again. That's fine.
Yeah. I think yeah. When we flip over to side 2, we'll play the short one. We'll have a music interlude and see what you guys think, because there's a few people that have joined us and they missed that intro, I'm sure. So hang around, guys.
All right, lovely. Well, okay. Good enough. 10 out of 10. Brad. No, I'm kidding. Look, what I mean, one day I think it would actually be really fun to do a whole show on our favorite first tracks on records that where we just almost fell off the chair when we dropped the needle, you know. And for me, Good Enough is absolutely good enough. It's one of those songs. I think it's such a great start to a record. You've got Sammy kind of tipping his hat to, who was it, the Big Bopper in 1958 on Chantilly Lace, going, hello, baby, but doing it in his Sammy way with super modern production and the Eventide harmonizer on his voice and all of that stuff. So it almost let you know that this was going to be as much fun as 50s rock and roll, but you know, supercharged and brought into the future. I think all the riffs are cool. The beat is cool. Lyrically, obviously, classic 80s rock, you know, puns and plays on words with comparing, you know, the fairer sex to oysters and rare steak and all sorts of fun things. And that's what rock and roll should be. You know, it's just people having fun. And really, to me, straight away on this record, you can hear how much these guys were digging on each other and how it was a new relationship and they were all basically in love as bros, you know? So really 10 out of 10 for me on this one. Killer start to a record.
Oh, look, I have to agree, Hoss. This is like straight from that Hello Baby bit. It's like a complete rebirth and energy shift for the band. That's what I pick up immediately. Straight from the squeal of the song into where the section, it's your head starts nodding along. You can't help it. If you want to wave the fist, you want to get into it. It's just straight off the bat. It's an amazing opening track. Sammy's in fine form vocally on this. He sings amazing. The harmonies are sensational. I love the cheeky lyrics. Matches all the cheeky guitar playing from Ed. There's like that sort of, you know, that banter between the guitar and lead vocalist is there. It's fantastic. The breakdown section kind of sounds like AC/DC to me in that Malcolm Young sort of thing where it breaks down. And, you know, we have mentioned on the channel before, there's obviously a huge love for AC/DC, especially with, Ed. He loved AC/DC. So you can hear that Malcolm Young thing coming through.
Yeah, you're talking about the breakdown where it's like after the solo where it's like dun 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 dun, that bit, right?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
you're right, because if you think of the drums to that, you've got your kick doing 4 to the floor, and those I mean, that's classic AC/DC. That's basically Thunderstruck, you know.
You could almost say like they've ripped it off, but they haven't. But it's that
Yes, of course.
Yeah, they're just doing it in their way. Look, I love this song. I love the way they perform on it. I love the way they end the songs, very much like a live stage ending, which I love the way bands do that. Van Halen just always used to end like fade outs to me. Don't cut it. I want to hear a big rock ending like this song. And Alex, I have to say, is slamming on this all the way through. Mikey's Mikey's killer on the bass in this song. It's one of the greatest opening tracks of an album of all time. It's like 100 out of 10. For me, it's like a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah.
Oh, look, I think you guys are fantastic and on the money with your scores and also your opinions on it. Look, 5 seconds into the song, guys, we know that there's something definitely different. Something different isn't there compared to what had happened on the other albums. That stereo sound that Mick managed to get Eddie to do really, really well just comes through, doesn't it? We know that we're in for something really, really, really interesting. And Hoss, you hit it on a nail on the head with the introduction with Sammy's vocals. Look, I love it. I think it's fantastic. That eventide harmonizer that you spoke about is clear on this song. It gives us a pathway to everything that's going to happen for the next 3 or 4 albums. I love it. I love the song. I love the singing, the guitar tones. I have to agree with you. There's some AC/DC aspects to it. And we even heard that back in the day. You know, we couldn't escape but make those connections back then. And it didn't quite fit with some people. I remember having that conversation with some people, AC/DC, Van Halen, because the same people that were listening to AC/DC weren't necessarily listening to Van Halen, if you understand what I mean.
That's really, really true. And it comes down to like what Sammy said again, how like they had that AC/DC toughness in the rhythm section, but on the top they had these pop kind of major chords, which obviously wasn't really what AC/DC were doing, you know. Yeah. So you're right on that, Andrew. Yeah. The other thing that's really interesting about sorry, you haven't scored yet. I interrupted you. Sorry, brother.
Oh, no, it's okay. We're a show. We're just guys. We're at the pub and we're having ginger beers and having a chat.
Lovely.
Without swearing. Hey, look, guys, I have to Brad score this. I think for an opening track, and I'm marking this album emotionally because I just remember this album, listening to it 10 times in a row on a cassette. Look, I love it. Brad score. 100 out of 10, never a skip.
Well, I can't even judge you guys for giving it 10 times more than the top score is allowed, because it really is that good, you know. Yeah. And just if I'm allowed to put the little cherry on top, I just want to say that Mikey Mojo is in there saying about the drop A tuning. Ed on the 1984 tour had a guitar where he put a bass string as the low string and tuned it to an A, and in that that kind of development section that goes a don do 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 is actually a low A, which is the bass string through the Marshall, which is so super cool. And it's one of those things you don't notice unless you put headphones on, but when you do, it's really obvious, and you just say, "How did I miss that?" The other thing that's interesting, I forgot to mention before, is that the guitar solo is in 6/4, not in 4/4, and that's really unusual for a rock song. So if you think about the rhythm part, it goes dun 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 1 2 3 4 5 6 dun go 1 2 3 4 5. And Ed, we talked about this, guys, on an earlier show about how when I was breaking down Eruption, I realized that Ed naturally feels phrases of licks and melodies in 6 instead of 4.
Yep.
And this to me absolutely just proves that he really feels things a lot in 6, because I don't know anyone else that in a pop song to open a record would be as bold as to put the solo in odd time, you know. So I got to say too, unbelievable guitar solo. I remember when I was a kid, I loved that solo. Yeah. And Kelly saying 6/4 Alex, absolutely. I mean, those two could do anything, you know, really. I mean, we've talked about it a lot, but they grew up on jazz, and so 6/4 to them was nothing.
Yeah.
So 6-4 to them was like driving down the road at 60 kilometers an hour in fourth gear. You know, it was nothing. So, and yeah, just to recap what both of you said, if anyone, given that Why Can't This Be Love was a synth pop thing and was to open the record with a singer going, "Hello, baby," and just Ed's horsey, straight away in about 3 seconds, you go, "Oh, I've got nothing to worry about." You know, it's just super cool. All right, which brings us on to the first single off the record, which is "Why Can't This Be Love," and this was released on just before the album on Feb 26, so about a month before, and it got to number 3. It's interesting talking about the fact that the first single, because I mean, the Van Halen fans were always going to buy the album and then they were going to get slapped over the head with Good Enough. But for most of the other people, their first impression of this new band with a new singer and producer was Why Can't This Be Love, which didn't really have any kind of traditional guitar solo at all. You know, it really has that. They're just really 2-note chords, aren't they? That you know, I always liked this song, but I never really fell in love with this song. It didn't light a fire under my bum like Good Enough or some of the other things. But look, it's a killer song. The melodies are fantastic. I love the way it always pauses just before the downbeat of the chorus kicking in. Is a really clever idea. You know, look, for me, gets a 9 out of 10 for me because I love it, but it doesn't make my blood curdle like some of the others.
Sure.
Brad.
Look, I've always loved this song, and to be honest, I just love the energy of this song. I always used to love, you know, listening to that little intro at the start with that helicopter sort of sound of whatever it was. It used to, like, you know, it's like the calm before the storm. I just love the feel on the drums. It's just swinging along. I love the vocal melodies in the song. It's such a great vocal delivery from Sammy. You know, the lyrics are about love, and you know, we all like tongue-in-cheek sort of songs, but this is a very emotional song in the sense where it's about love. And I like songs like that. They evoke emotion, and those sort of things resonate with me. I love the it kind of gives, this is the spirit of Van Hagar to me. And the exact reason I like this song. Great harmonies. The solo is perfect. It's not over the top. There's nothing special about it, but it sits perfectly in the song and really proves, you know, Ed had evolved as a musician at this point and was all about the song, not necessarily about showing flair. He still could and still wanted to, but he just knew this song just needed what he played, and that's it. And anyone can play what he's playing there. So that just him is losing the ego and playing what's needed for the song. Oh, look, you could play this song to anyone who doesn't know Van Halen as a good example of what Van Hagar is to me. And for that reason, I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10. It's catchy. It's got all the goodness in there of a song. It's got the melodies, it's got the harmonies. You know, 10 out of 10 for me, never a skip.
Yep. Beautiful.
Andrew.
Look, what a funky guitar solo by Eddie on this song. It's just fantastic. I like the fact too, you know, that Hoss mentioned, you know, you got that intro, you know, with that Oberheim playing simple chords, you know, but it works, you know. You said it, Brad, you know, Eddie's just doing what he needs to do for the song, you know. And look, I agree with you, Brad. I think the song encapsulates a lot of things of what Van Halen wanted to do with Sammy. And looking back on it, they did a pretty good job. You know, I said to you guys before, I remember when this song was on the radio, and you have to remember this, you know, this song was played in between a Whitney Houston song and a Duran Duran song. You know, this was on commercial FM radio here in New Zealand. So back in 1986, 87, you know, so that was a remarkable achievement And this album did really, really well here in this country as well. As Hoss said, with no video backup, which is remarkable. So, you know, the old radio stations doing exactly what they're supposed to do, play music. I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10 too. I'm not going to Brad score it, but I love the song. I love the song. I think the segue from Good Enough into this song, dropping that tempo, Hoss, it's pretty good. And I just want to say one little thing on the back of my mind when you spoke about the 6/4 tempo that the Van Halens were doing, and they could do that with their eyes closed. I don't think we talk enough about that. I think you're absolutely right. We mentioned it a little bit last week, didn't we, about the jazz background, how these guys would have been listening to jazz, not just only their father play, but also he would have been playing records. So that jazz, and jazz is all about timing. And Hoss mentioned that, you know, if you don't have timing, you can't play jazz. You can play blues, but you can't play jazz.
Yeah, it's a pretty critical element. You know, I mean, as you were saying, Andrew, that a song, to think that this album came out in an era where a song could be number one with no music video is astounding. John Conklin was in the chat there. Hey, John, saying that he believes that one of the reasons they didn't do a clip for the first single was because they ran out of time because they hit the road. That might be true, but they still didn't do music videos for any of the other songs on the album that they had plenty of time to do. So I still feel like it might have been convenient for them to tell the record company, oh, we don't have time, we have to hit the road, because it was very clear that they didn't do any clips for that record. Look, I could be wrong, but to me, okay, you don't get one in time for the first single, but you could still get them out in time for the other three. You know,
Hoss, you're never wrong, because we love talking about theories. We can construct our own theories here, you know, so you're never wrong.
The other thing that Van Halen was really, really good at, and this happens a lot, is, and especially in the Sammy Hagar era, if you take the vocal off, and obviously because Ed's writing a lot of the chords and the structure of it, you can always hear like a seed, like a germ of the like a genesis, if you like, of another song that he'd already released on one of the Roth albums. Like, to me, if you straighten the shuffle a little bit of Beautiful Girls, it's almost exactly Why Can't This Be Love? You know,
Wow.
dun, 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 dun. Oh, tell me why can't this be love? Oh, Beautiful Girls. You know, it's got that. Beautiful Girls is a little bit more shuffled, but it's really, the groove is almost identical in terms of the tempo and everything. But I think that as Van Halen fans, that's what we want. There's always something familiar. You know, it's not like all of a sudden they sounded like Pearl Jam or something, you know. So, and one other thing that I was just going to say, I mentioned it before. This was actually the first song that they played live at 5150 for Mick Jones. And his quote that I have here, which is hilarious, he says, hang on, I've lost it. I've totally lost it. It doesn't matter. What I was going to say is, interestingly, there's a lyric that Sammy wrote in there, which I think was a little nod to how they were all feeling at the time, which is, only time will tell if we stand the test of time. And I think that that's really cool. But, well, all right, moving on to the third track on the album, the raucous, the ridiculous, hyper Van Halen track that like a Hot for Teacher kind of thing, or that we all know and love, Get Up. I didn't, honestly, when I first heard this, when I was like 13 years old, I didn't know what to make of this song. It didn't, back then, I mean, I still, even in the studio, I tend to gravitate towards simple, poppy, very hooky kind of melodies. But so songs that are more of like a jam feel, almost like a, you know, might have their influence in Led Zeppelin, which we know the guys loved. Always when I was young, a bit lost on me. But man, this is such a killer song. And I don't know if many people have really tried to listen to Mikey's bass part on this, but if you haven't, because it's actually pretty hard to hear, as we know, he was notoriously mixed pretty low until about the OU812 record. Put some headphones on and try and just listen to the bass part. It is as nuts as the drums and the guitar. I promise. It's awesome. He's just do 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 do. It's like jazz walking bass. It's so cool. Look, I don't know how much more to say about this song other than it's a freight train. Ed was, of course, using his new guitar, the Steinberger with the trans trem and the active EMG pickups. So it has that classic thing that a lot of people didn't know how he was getting that sound in the beginning. They thought he was open tuning his guitar and using a slide and playing it like a blues guy. But actually, of course, as we know now, he wasn't doing that. He was using the trans trem, which was revolutionary. And I've been fortunate enough to borrow one for my Van Halen gig. And it's the first time I've ever played one. I got to tell him, Brad, you got to get your hands on this thing. It is the craziest invention, and hats off, because it's so clever in its simplicity. You'd think it would be like a piano with a billion wires and strings to pull this technology off, but it's actually not. But it's just genius. And anyway, there's probably no better example of Ed's new toy, his new guitar, than on this song. And of course, I can't not mention Michael Anthony's backing vocal range on this song. It is in the stratosphere, you know. But look, I love it. It is. I was wrong, by the way, when I was saying before that Why Can't This Be Love was the first song they jammed for Mick Jones. I apologize. It was actually Get Up. It was this one. And Mick Jones says this is his quote. He said, "I've never heard anything like that in my whole life. It sounds like the four of you are fighting inside the speakers, beating the shit out of each other. I'm in." And so that was when he said he would produce the record after hearing that. And can you blame him? Because there's no other band in the world that could have played that song, or written that song, you know. So 9 out of 10 for me.
Wow. Yeah, look, I've always loved this song as a kid, you know, up-and-coming guitar player. You know, I'd always sit back and just be fascinated with what was going on musically, but more fascinated with what was going on with the guitar. I did pick up on the, you know, Hot for Teacher vibe. That was like, you know, the Sammy version of Hot for Teacher, in my opinion, the way they did it. And I always thought that was a slide at the start, the intro, the guitar playing. I thought it was slide. So it's got that sleazy vibe to it, like a slide guitar. Yep. The drums are just full of energy. They take off. You know, Alex plays like a steam train in this song. There's so much energy. Sammy's singing with everything he has through this one. And I did mention, like you noted there, Hoss, that Mikey is unbelievable in this song. Just, you know, those stratosphere vocals is just unreal. His BVs are just stellar. I love that breakdown section before the solo. The solo to me is like a frantic mess, but in a good way. I can't really explain it properly, but it's like a frantic scatter of notes, and like the way he does it is just unbelievable. It's a magical sort of element to the band that's we're being seen, and I can imagine showing this as an example for the first song that anyone's ever heard, like with Sammy at the helm. You know, what can I say? It's got another massive stage cock rock ending style ending. I had to get 9 out of 10. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's the heaviest song on the album, isn't it? And you know what's really interesting about this song, I'm going to make a comparison to the version that they do on Live Without a Net, which I think is fantastic. But one thing that interested me, guys, was the way you see Eddie. So he's playing from the A to the D chord, but he's using that whammy at the same time, you know. So you see, so we heard it for a while, you know, this thing happening, and then we see what he's doing. You know, it's one thing for us to sit there and watch the solos and stuff like that, but just see what he's doing on some of the other songs. So he's working that trem on that 5150, you know, you know, going from those chords. I never liked the song a lot, guys, when I first heard it. I have to tell you the truth there, because yeah, you know, I didn't get it. It wasn't something that that my ear picked up on, but certainly was a song that I appreciated after seeing the Live Without a Net. Then I got it. Then I got the context of what the song was about, and you know, appreciated it. Look, I was hovering around a 9. but I'm going to give it a 10 because I think it's a great song, and I'm heavily influenced by the live version, Hoss, so forgive me.
No, I am too. Honestly, like I said, when I was young and heard this on the record, I think it was a bit much for my young ears. I didn't quite know what to make of it. But when I saw them do it on Live Without a Net, it made perfect sense. The other thing that I think is kind of like cute about it, I don't know if cute's the right word, but obviously there was a lot more keyboards on this record and a lot more kind of like broader sort of, straight form kind of 80s pop influence. And that might have come from a bit from Mick Jones, of course. But really, this to me is almost like their way of telling people, listen, in case you think we've lost the, lost our rock vibe and have kind of wimped out and cheesed out on you guys, we'll play something that no band in the rest of the world could play, And
absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And including the previous lineup of Van Halen, we would not have been able to do this song this way.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just think that where Sammy places those vocals rhythmically, it wouldn't be Roth. I don't think Roth could do it,
No.
And those choruses, where Sammy's just holding that note with Mikey above him. Get up! I mean, as we know, that's just not Dave's thing. Dave is more of a crooner kind of dude, So, yeah, killer. Well, we come to another single on side A, which of course is Dreams. Massive song. This is definitely, it's pretty hard for me to say anything that I really don't like about it. I mean, it's perfectly written to me. It's classical in form. Mick Jones was saying that in a book I read, I can't remember which one, but he was quoted as saying that it's his favorite performance that he's ever managed to get out of Sammy of all the years of working with him. Was he really felt like on the day that he got Dreams out of Sammy, something magical happened, and for a producer to say that, because producers hold the cards pretty close to their chest usually. So for him to say that that's he felt like he contributed to Sammy being able to get that performance is awesome, and apparently, I didn't know this, but this song had been kicking around on cassettes and stuff with Ed for like a couple of years before they actually got to it. So it was obviously one that he was kind of keeping for a rainy day and that he knew would be good and that he loved, because of course, there's, like you were just saying, Andrew, there's no way that Roth could have pulled off Dreams. It's just not his style of song. So obviously Ed was keeping it for, I don't know, maybe another movie soundtrack or something else for one day. But of course, when Sammy ended up joining, I think it was probably pretty obvious to him that he'd found a home for this song finally. And what a song. I've got to say, even to this day, when I listen to it, when I get to the guitar solo, I can almost remember the smells and sights and sounds and the way I felt as a 13-year-old kid when I would listen to this song on the radio, because this was one of the ones that wasn't on my compilation tape, believe it or not. So, whoever made the tape for my guitar teacher at the time had put the more obscure stuff like the song 5150 and a few other things. They didn't put the singles. So when I first heard this was actually on the radio, and I just remember that because I'd already been playing classical guitar for about 4 or 5 years. When I heard that guitar solo, that was like an alien had landed in the middle of this awesome song. And to this day, when I listen to it and I get to that section, it's one of my favorite Eddie Van Halen guitar solos of all time. This one, I think it's phrased beautifully. And I would say that if you ask me if I had to pick one short Eddie Van Halen lick that to me is my favorite Eddie Van Halen lick, it's in this solo when he goes da, 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 and it's three or four notes, and it's just a blues lick, really. It's like a Clapton lick, isn't it? Da, 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 da.
Yep.
But the way that he does it and his touch when he plays those 4 notes, that's my favorite Eddie lick. So this 10 out of 10 for me.
Wow. I don't know how to follow that, boss. Look, I remember seeing this clip as a very young guy and wondering why there was no footage of the members in the film clip. Like, because most people were around at that time always, had the band prancing around and whatnot. And this was just the planes going around. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, why isn't there no footage of the band? And I have to say, I remember the first time I heard the melody of this song and the words, it just gave me goosebumps. And every day, every time I listen to it, I listen to it today, I listen to it all week, I still get goosebumps. This song has a wonderful melody, has some really beautiful lyrics. The chorus is magical. I love the bit where it goes, we'll get higher, higher, leave it all behind. It just, there's something quite magical about that line to me. It invokes a bit of hope and it's like motivating. It's, leave the past behind, go chase your dreams. It was something about it to me. It still does it to me. It gives me goosebumps. And it's a feel good song. And I have to agree with Hoss. It's one of Ed's finest guitar solos. I absolutely adore the outro solo. It's when Ed passed away, this is one of the songs where I got emotional listening to this song. It was I fell in love with Van Halen because of this song, and I still think it's one of the best songs written of all time, and I think it's one of Van Halen's finest moments. Sammy shines on this without a doubt. In my opinion, his best vocal performance ever. I gave it 100 out of 10. It's never a skip for me. Andrew,
excuse me.
Thanks. You guys are amazing and awesome, and everyone in the chat that's offering their ranks and their comments too on these songs is even more amazing as well. Thank you guys for joining us and being part of the show. Look, Ed's low in the mixed rhythm tone that supports that synth tone's amazing throughout the song, isn't it? It's just fantastic. I can't add much more to the song after what my co-hosts have mentioned. The vocal performance is a standout, isn't it? Certainly on the first listen through of this album, it had to have been, for a lot of us, a standout song. I'm just reading some of the comments in here. People are saying they still love this song, 30 plus years later. Look, I agree. Well, it's more than 30 years. I agree. It's a phenomenal song. It's fantastic. Love all versions of it. I have to Brad score this too. It's never a skip. It's in my top 5 favorite Van Halen songs ever. I'm not going to say anything about the solo because the guys have said it, but what a fiery solo. Go and listen to it. The solo, Brad and Hoss suit the song. It's just a nice, intricate piece of Eddie's guitar work. Love it.
Yeah, I agree, Andrew. I think the solo in the song especially is testament to Eddie's restraint and how musical he was and how he could make decisions based on what the song needed, not as a guitar virtuoso. Because really, even though we all love the solo in this song so much, when you really listen to it, there's nothing that flashy for Eddie Van Halen. Even his opening line of the main part of the solo is just da 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 da. It's just a melody, It's whereas anyone else would just start ripping, And I just think the fact that Eddie can just play some melodies and just get on with it is what I think it's what makes it one of my favorite solos, actually. And Brad, you were saying just before about how after Eddie passed, there's parts of this song and lyrics in this song and the outro solo that even now you're still particularly emotional. Look, I feel the same way. I feel exactly that way about this song. It's why, I'm going to finish the Van Halen show I'm doing at the corner with this, with Nina singing it. Hey, Nina, she's in the chat there.
Yeah, yeah. What a version.
And and so for anyone that hasn't seen snippets of that yet, I will be doing a promo with Nina singing some songs soon. So you'll get to hear her incredible voice singing Van Halen, which suits it perfectly, especially for a song like Dreams, But look, I think the meaning of the lyrics, the whole thing's just beautiful. What a song, man. Yeah. It's so weird to think, and again, another song that really had no music video other than that after the fact it got done to the Blue Angels doing their tricks in the air, the acrobatics and stuff.
And I have to agree that guitar lick, Hoss.
Do you know the one I mean? Yeah. Just that. Yeah. It's weird that out of all the Van Halen licks I know, that's just always my favorite. And it's the most fun to play on a guitar. There's something so satisfying about that, playing that on a guitar. It's strange. But all right, well, we're up to the last song on side A, Summer Nights. And this, to me, probably more than any other, look, for someone especially that not only doesn't live in the US, but doesn't live in California. And I think I said that backwards, but you know what I mean. You know, I've spent enough time in LA over the years where that classic, you know, beaches, sun, and I think that even subconsciously goes way back to even the Beach Boys and stuff, you know, like just associating that West Coast music with like summer and surf and fun. There's been Van Halen songs in the past, Beautiful Girls we talked about before. That's one of them that just totally, when I hear that song, I can almost picture the beach and smell the water, you know. But Summer Nights is absolutely a song where you can smell that summer air and it's like dusk and you're sitting around with the boys at a bar and you're getting ready to go out for the night, you know. And in the words of Louis C.K., all the boys wearing their best stripy shirts, you know. And to me, Summer Nights encapsulate, like they've managed to almost take you to a place that you've never been with the music and the words, you know. And, you know, again, you know, the classic Sammy Hagar, like plays on words and puns, like talking about going fishing and meeting you down at the fishing hole and all that. But, you know, it's all in fun and it's just playing and you know, Summer Nights on my radio. It's awesome. I see I'm getting emotional even thinking about it. 10. I got nothing more to say. I love that song. That's killer.
Oh, Hoss, look, I have to agree with everything you said. I've always thought this intro is just sensational. You know, after the intro, it's almost like a whole new feel of the song. There's some badass like playing from Alex. It's just swinging along.
What a swing. Yeah.
You know, and Mikey's just locked into that. And it just goes to show how well they play together. They're just so locked in. Yeah, Sammy backs off a bit, singing pretty soulful on this during the verses and everything. Ed's playing is obviously outstanding. I remember a time in my life when I'd be driving down to the beach, surfboard on the roof racks, you know, windows down, cruising along with the windows down, warm air blowing through my windows because the air conditioning wouldn't work. And it was along a coastal road and I was listening to this song and it always takes me back to that moment of just like feeling completely and utterly free. And I love this track for that reason. And, you know, 10 out of 10, never a skip for me.
Yeah.
Andrew.
Awesome. Hey, guys, we've got 46 people watching us. Thank you very much. Someone in the comments said that they're a new subscriber to the channel. I want to make it clear that all subscribers to our channel get a instant sub back. So thank you very much for that. We appreciate that. Hoss and Brad have done a remarkable thing about this song, and the fact that they've painted some memories or some images or some thoughts or some landscapes from a song is remarkable, isn't it, for the magic that that song can do. I think the two songs, you know, Dreams and Summer Nights, one of the greatest track placements for songs in rock and roll history. You've got Dreams and then it cranks into this. It's just, okay, you've dreamt your dream. Now we're into the party mode. It's come on, guys. It's fantastic. You know, you've got that finger picking intro, Hoss and Brad, and then he goes, then Ed's get into the pick again. You know, it's fantastic. We can hear that. We love that. You know, he's got that the rhythm part that we love playing. It's another example of Ed doing a lot. And it goes back to Running with the Devil and even Panama, you know, where he can do that. And we're just mesmerized by it. Still, even today, we're talking about these things. I love it. I have to agree with you guys. It's never a skip. What a great song to end just about a perfect album side.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Couldn't have said it better, Andrew. Leaving side A with a classic Van Halen West Coast summer meet you at the bar kind of song is just the perfect way to get you just salivating, ready to see what's on side two, you know. Speaking about the finger picking thing you just mentioned too, I didn't know for years when I was young, and this goes back to their jazz upbringing, that, and Ed and Alex would do this all the time, they don't start the guitar on beat one. comes after the 1. So it's like 3, 4, 1. Dun, da, 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 1. Da, da, da. I never knew that for years. It was always so. That's why that when they go that break, I was always like, man, how come it comes in funny? But again, testament to their breadth of musical influences. You know, when they were young, and Brad, you were saying about that slow shuffle thing. I mean, it's just sexy and sassy, you know. So, but yeah. Well,
Awesome.
that's it. That's side 1 of the record done. Ticked. I mean, almost all 10s, really, isn't it? How do you argue with that?
Pretty good. We're going to play a musical interlude for all the cats and kittens that didn't get to see this at the start of the show. So sit back. Where's this guy? Make sure he plays the right video. Sit back and watch this.
Hello, babe.
Short and sweet.
Fantastic.
Yeah, just a couple of 5150 songs that we'll be doing at the Corner Hotel in April.
Yeah. Give us the date for that again, Hoss, for people who are here.
Friday, it'll be Friday the 14th, which is Good Friday, and it's going to be a great Friday when you get to play Van Halen songs. So, you know,
it won't be just Good Friday, it'll be Great Friday.
There you go.
Friday. Yeah.
Thanks, Robert. Well, so side 2. Now, I have to quickly run to the little boys' room. Would one of you guys mind kicking off? Should we go backwards for side 2?
Yeah, sure. Okay. You shoot off and do what you want to do. That'll be fine, brother. We're going nowhere.
I'll be super fast. Give me 60 seconds.
Yeah, no problem. We'll do some shout outs while you're gone. So we got some cats in the chat. Very, very good followers of the channel. We really appreciate the work that you guys do for us. Mickey Mojo in here. Mark Dillon, haven't seen you guys for a while. It's fantastic. Mike Rogers, Robert Ranford, who's just joined the channel. We'll sub back to you, brother, when we finish the show. We got Halen here. You guys are fantastic. Ellen, who had a birthday last week. Happy birthday, Ellen, again. We were thinking of you on the day. It's always a good day to celebrate a birthday. Brad, I just want to say to you guys that it's just fantastic, the 5150 show, just sitting back, listening to these albums again, talking about them. I never get tired of talking about Van Halen on the 5150 show, brother.
I never get tired of it. And like I have to say, I mean, it's so good to be, listening to Hoss talk about this stuff, because it's, he's got such a broad knowledge of this stuff, probably more than what you and I have put together, Andrew. So, especially he plays this stuff, he's doing it. So it's coming from his, humble opinion, because, he's playing the stuff humbly. He's doing it respectfully. So we've got to give it to Hoss when he gets back. I'm not blowing hot wind up his bum, but wow, watching that little interlude that you played there makes me want to either pick up my guitar and just start shredding, or break it because I can't do it. It's just unbelievable.
Awesome. We got Neil Daly in the chat too, and Neil's responsible for the 5150 guitar that Hoss is playing on that clip. We do have a longer video that Hoss gave me that included Nina singing her song. So what I may do, I might try and play that video at the end of the show, We just had some glitches with it, so we'll see if we can play that, and we'll see how we go. But fantastic video, Hoss. We didn't talk about anything. We waited for you to come back to kick off side two.
No, sorry. I thought one of you guys could kick off with side B, and I didn't want to hold you up. But
no, it's okay.
Okay, yeah. For some reason, the longer videos StreamYard struggles with a bit, but no matter. I mean, it might still be interesting for people if you want to play that at the long one at the end.
Yeah.
So side B, drop the needle, best of both worlds, and another great lyrical meaning for, I mean, who knows really, but in my mind, I like to imagine that there's a little bit of a perhaps a reference there to like how they all felt musically about each other.
Yep.
Like Ed and Alex and Mike had a singer that could sing anything they wanted but still be a cool frontman and run around, and Sammy had a band that could play musically and write songs that were going to be number one hits. So in terms of, I imagine, all four of them, it really was now the best of both worlds and a refreshing change. Look, this is obviously, again, you can hear the AC/DC influence in this, that classic da-na-na-na-na. But really, it might sound like we're a broken record on these last two albums talking about the AC/DC influence, but to say that a rock band's not influenced by AC/DC, any rock band, not Van Halen, is like saying that a pop band's not influenced by the Beatles. It's ridiculous. Obviously AC/DC are the cornerstone of rock and always have been since the early 70s. So, I think that their passion for AC/DC mixed in with all these other musical things we keep talking about is what makes them so unique, And I really respect that they weren't ashamed of it either. Like, Ed's even quoted in writing as saying, "Oh, the boys told me, like with Panama, write an AC/DC song." So, I think the fact that they didn't hide from it and didn't try and make out like, "Oh, this is the most original thing we've ever done," is testament to how confident and secure they were in their abilities.
Yep.
Hey, Nina. Yes, you're saying, big shoes to fill. Rubbish. Wait. Anyone that hasn't heard Nina, I think my next promo will probably involve Nina, so you'll get to hear her gorgeous voice. So best of both worlds. Look, to me, it never lit a fire under. I used to play this in cover bands when I was a teenager, like we all did all the time. And it's a really fun song to play, but I think like to listen to, it just never lit the fire under me that like Dreams did or Good Enough did or Summer Nights did. So for me, 8.5. Sorry, Andrew, Brad. No, don't. I love it. You got to remember that for me, 10 is me having physical sensations that humans shouldn't have without touching themselves, So 8.5.
Okay.
You see what I say? Yeah. So 8.5 is actually, compared to that, is still really, really good. I promise.
Just having you on, brother. Just having you on.
You're lucky because Andrew was thinking about timing you out, then I could read him like a book.
Actually, I know I could see his hand was on the buzzer there for a second. Just before you jump in, Brad, I just want to say to John in the chat there, yes, you're quite correct. There is a little bit of a Kool and the Gang celebration in there too, with that da-da-da-da. Yeah. So a melting pot of stuff, but still great song, Brad.
Yep.
Yeah. No, look, I've got to agree, Hoss. This drips AC/DC. I mean, guitars especially. Look, the verses, and I love the lyrics in this song. Mikey is really solid on the bass. Sammy's chorus lyrics, though, like for me, he's very targeting that stadium rock, like sort of invoking a sing-along. He wants crowd interaction, and I feel like that's what they achieved with this song live. Ed's playing obviously is outstanding, and this song captures just about everything you need to know about the Van Hagar era as well. To me, there's party, it's fun, it invokes interaction with their crowd and their fans, and on the record, I don't think it stands up as good as probably did live for them, because it was all about getting that crowd interaction. For that reason, like I have to give it 9 out of 10, and it's never a skip. I'd give it 10, but there's some really, outstanding songs on this record that shine above this one, in my opinion. But 9's still a good score.
But you bring up a good point, Brad, that Andrew brought up, and I won't say it because you might go here anyway, Andrew, but about the difference of on the record and live,
Yeah. Well, look, I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm going to give this song a 10 out of 10, and I think it's a fantastic side 2 opener. And again, Hoss and Brad, I remember buying this on a cassette, and then a couple of weeks later, buying it on a record, having the actual vinyl, which I still have. So the actual physical ritual of getting up and turning over the vinyl and dropping the needle again is just fantastic. Great side 2 opener. The way that Ed switches between strumming and that finger style in the intro is fantastic, guys, isn't it? We just love that, don't we? We can hear it. We can hear it. And again, we see it. We see this later, a couple of years later on Live Without a Net, and we're blown away by it. The guitar solo is fantastic. Brad's already summed it up. Again, it's continuing that Southern Californian, that American idea that we have. You guys have to remember we're half a world away here in Australia and New Zealand, so we're young guys and we've never been to North America, so a lot of the stuff that we're picking up is through obviously movies, but also the music. This song converted me. I thought I was in Southern California listening to this song, just like those other 2 songs. I have to give it a 10 out of 10. It's never a skip. Love the song.
Yeah, look, never a skip for me either, boys. When I give it that score, it's never a skip. I agree with you. I think dynamically, and I forget this about this song, because you're right, Andrew, the finger picking thing. I mean, it goes for a rock band song, the dynamics are huge. It goes quite quiet there in the verse,
Yeah.
So the way that it builds, and then of course it's got that really cool pre-chorus, it goes through all those modulations. And then when you think about it, like you were saying on another song on side A, Andrew, that you didn't really get it until you saw him do it on Live Without a Net, and then you got it. This to me is that song. When I saw them do it on Live Without a Net, I kind of really saw what it was. I just feel like it's because it's even the best of. It's like you can hear the whole crowd singing it, And so I think that for me, it works better for that, but killer song. And also you're right, dropping the needle and hearing, that's just cool. It's like such a change of gears to all the other stuff on side A, which brings us to Love Walks In. Gorgeous ballad. To me, I feel like this is the song on the record where I most hear producer Mick Jones's influence. It's on this one. When I was a kid, my dad had the Foreigner 4 record, with Urgent and Luan and Jukebox Hero and all that stuff. Man, that is such a cool record. And to this day, I still love that record. The production's great. Mick Jones' guitar playing's killer. Lou Gramm, there's nothing more you can say about that. Actually, Lou Gramm would have been a good replacement for new singer as well, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
Probably the closest thing to Sammy other than being Sammy. So it's sort of interesting, isn't it, that both the connection is Ted Templeman and Mick Jones. But anyway, I digest. Look, I can only give this an 8.5 as well. And the reason for that is because I love a good Van Halen ballad. In fact, I just love a good ballad from any band. If it's really well written, I'm in. But when it's love and dreams and ballads like that are so 10 out of 10s for me that this just doesn't quite get me at the same level of those other songs. It doesn't. The other songs, I'd almost play them again straight away. Whereas with Love Walks In, I'll be happy to move on to the next song when it's finished. It's that kind of thing. So for me, beautiful song. I feel like that Foreigner Mick Jones influence is a bit like the kind of keyboard playing and soundscape of Waiting for a Girl Like You, or I Want to Know What Love Is, and all that stuff he was writing and producing at the time. But killer, it's a beautiful song. And actually hearing him do it on Live Without a Net is always more emotional for me than listening to the album recording of it.
Correct.
Yeah. So, but look, I love it. It's a beautiful song. 8.5, Brad.
Yeah, look, this song, I hear it in a different context to how it was written. I think Sammy wrote it about aliens. And I don't really see it that way. I know he must have wrote it that way, but I see it and hear it as a love song.
Yeah, me too.
It's a wonderfully written song. Lyrically, it could be, written about he's singing to his flame, he's singing to his lover the feeling towards them. And it's a beautiful melody in the song. Some really uplifting and underestimated sort of bass in the song. You know, the guitars, beautiful guitar solos, some of Ed's finest. Sam's outstanding in this song. You know, Sammy, he's just singing great. I hear Al sort of channeling a bit of John Bonham, the triplets and everything towards the end of the song, like in the outro. It's got a really great feel. Look, I love the song, and I gave it 9 out of 10. I know Andrew loves this song, but I'm looking forward to seeing what he's going to rate this one, Andrew.
Very cool.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. You know, I've changed my mind about this song. So I'm going to, you know, so there's no rhythm guitar in the song at all. The only guitar is the solos, which is interesting. And I think that's probably affected maybe, you know, my score a little bit.
Right.
And, you know, next year when we go back and talk about this album again, it'll probably be a different score. But the point is, you know, we're organic and we're dynamic and we're ranking the album that we've been listening to for the last week. I love that little jump closing lick that's played on the 7th, 8th, and 10th fret. You know, at about the 250 mark. It's fantastic. I love it. You know, Eddie's one of these guitar players, a little bit like Clapton, that can probably play the same lick on a couple of songs, but it's not the same, you know, if you know what I mean. And we're all guitar players, and we know exactly. It might just be a timing thing, Hoss or Brad, you know, that just, you know, or just one note that you're not playing in that same lick that you played on a couple of other songs. This song, though, what's really interesting, set the direction, didn't it, for pop ballad songs, not just for this band, but for other bands in the late 80s. I agree with you, Hoss. I did not pick up on Mick's influence on this song in particular for a long, long time. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when we were talking about it and talking about the producer and his contribution and those songs that you mentioned, you know, Miami Vice played that version of a Foreigner song. I want to know what love is. You know, and you know, so when you get that through your head and work that out and listen to this song, you see the connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to give this song, it's not their best ballad, Brad. It's not their best ballad. But I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. I'm happy with my 8. It's never a skip, but I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10 and leave it there, guys.
Yeah, great. Beautiful. Yeah, I agree. It's still a beautiful ballad. I think we've said it all. So moving on to the title track of the album, 5150. This was another song that when I was younger, I don't know, it just felt like it's one of those songs that kind of develops over the length of the song. And so my young ears didn't really hook to it. But I got to say, it's now one of my very, very, very favorite Van Halen songs. And for anyone that's lucky enough to have jammed it with a band or learned it and play it on guitar, it is so much fun to play, more than you think. It's actually almost more fun to play than to listen to. You know, I mean, the verse groove, how deep is that verse groove with Al and Ed and Mike? It's almost like Unchained on half speed, you know, it's Unchained on, it's so deep. I love that verse groove. But then, of course, that pre-chorus, how it starts to kind of bubble and get busy, you know. And then you've got that classic, you know, just why not throw some spanner in the works Van Halen thing where that little instrumental interlude bit where he's kind of like, you know, modulating like really quickly into kind of undiatonic chords is really cool. And it really gives all the rest of that plotty kind of deep groove of the verse a real point of difference. But then, man, that chorus, killer, absolutely killer. I love it. It's tuneful. It's melodic. I love the way Sammy sings on it. I would have, I've actually never heard him do it live, but I would have loved to Love to hear that. They didn't do it on Live Without a Net, did they?
Which
I can't remember. No, 5150. No. Oh, hang on. Yes, they do. I think they do it on Live Without a Net.
do.
Sorry, everyone. I'm starting to brain freeze.
Yeah, I'm freezing too.
Yeah. Anyway,
it's track 6. Track 6 on there. How did we get that wrong?
don't know, but I guess when you talk so passionately about something that's so dear to your heart for an hour and a half, I think after that, my heart is just, my brain doesn't know what's up and down anymore. Anyway, the guitar solo at the end on the record, I just love that guitar solo. I think that's one of Eddie's greatest improvised ripping solos of all of them. And one last thing before I'll let you guys say your bits as well is one of the things that really stood out to me with this song and that I love every day when I listen to it is that considering how we know that where Ed took the 5150 title for the recording studio, but also, his guitar and then the name of the album being the police code for someone that's mentally unstable. To me, these lyrics aren't that at all. It's really clever how Sammy's taken the same number, 5150, and made it like you were saying, Brad, before about how You Hear Love Walks In as a romantic song between a couple of humans rather than a thing about aliens coming and giving you love or whatever. But to me, this is what Sammy's singing about is classically his partner always wanting one more. So it's instead of being 50-50 in the relationship, it ends up being 51-50. And I think to make a double meaning out of the word is super, super clever. This is an 11 out of 10 for me, this one.
Yeah,
I love it. Yeah, love this song.
Look, I can't really say much more than what you've already said, but I'm glad we cleared up that Live Without a Net thing because I kept picturing the Live Without a Net version of this when I was ranking it, even though I was listening to 5150, the album. So, it's a great guitar intro. There's a lot of urgency and anticipation in the playing. Love when the drums come in, and I have to agree, Hoss, that groove is just, it's infectious. That groove that Alex is just playing through that, and that riff is just unreal, so sleazy. That harmony has a real sort of Beatle vibe to me in the song. Now, the verses take on a whole new vibe again. There's obviously a lot of like Ed goodness and techniques in the solo that we all love so much. Look, can't agree anymore. It's a 10 out of 10 for me. It's never a skip. I love the song. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, and shout out to Neil Daly. Hey, Neil, he was just saying in the chat too that he thinks it's one of possibly an example of Ed's best songwriting. And I got to agree with that, Neil. I just really think it's right up there with anything the boys have done,
Yeah.
Just blown away by the comments of everybody in the chat in relation to the songs that we're talking about. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Hoss, Get Up might be the heaviest track on the album, but the title, 5150 rivals it, doesn't it, with good old fashioned riffing. That intro is pretty easy from a chord sense. You just I understand he's tuned a semitone down, so the chords of a D, E, and an A. It's not that difficult to play, but again, you've got that timing thing. I love the song. I have to agree with what everybody in the chat's saying. It's one of their best songs ever. I love the fact that Hoss mentioned and made the connection between 51 and 50. Always one more. It's fantastic. We're very happy and proud to name our show after that. Because there's always someone that wants one thing more. So,
that's right.
Not risk. Yeah. Look, I love the song. I think it's fantastic. It's probably the best song on the album for me. I have to Brad score this. I just think it's phenomenal. The live version is even better.
Yeah, look, I agree with all of that. There's something about this song, given that it's not on the face of it overly emotional kind of song, but there's something about this that when I listen to it, if I'm in a particular mood, it'll actually make me kind of emotional. It's
Yeah,
very,
I
it's
just
very
love the way.
strange.
Yeah, I just love the tone. The tone is a little bit different on this compared to Ed's tone. At least it's very different, and it may be because it's tuned down a little bit. I don't know. Yeah, but I just think his tone on this song is exceptional. Hoss and Brad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Hoss, not everyone can play as well as you, mate. So we don't have the advantage of being able to play along with it like you can. That's all.
Well, actually, Andrew made an interesting point about that. Thank you, Brad. But it's not.
It's a little backhanded compliment there, you bastard.
I know, but I never know what to say about that stuff. But Andrew, you were saying before about how the intro is kind of simple chords. You're right. Harmonically, it's actually the simplest thing Ed's ever written. It's basically a 1-4-5 chord progression. The way he plays it, though, I have to say, is very awkward for me personally. They're not classic guitar voicings, and it's another thing that's just always interesting to me about learning an Eddie Van Halen guitar part is that there's always one little unconventional thing that you go, oh man, that really hurts my pinky. There's always one more. Never satisfied. Anyway.
But I never do it his way. I just do it, the blues guitar player. When I do my D, E, and A, I just do it the blues way. It sounds pretty good.
Yeah, look, man, what a killer! And for that reason, that's also why, like, as you guys know, I'm going to end the show with Dreams, but this is the second last song because it's just that close to my heart. To me, it feels like it should close the night out, But Nelson was saying it's 51-50 time. I can't believe that I forgot to. That's so obvious, isn't it? That we should have done that. But anyway, so the last track on the album, Inside, which to me really feels kind of like a jam. And I know it's probably not because of the way that he's got the synthesizer part, So, but look, I mean, who knows? Maybe they did initially jam it and then they just loved it up with some other production, so it sounds kind of a bit more produced. But this is going to be one right now. And for the last 20 years or so, this would be never a skip. I would never not listen to this song if I already listened to the rest of the record. But when I was a teenager, this song was a skip for me. And because I didn't really get it, it was like one chord. Apart from that little bridge section where it changes chords, it's essentially one thing the whole time. You can hear them all having a party in the background and all of that, I love it for what it is now. I think it's unique, and I think it's a kind of a fun way to just jam out the record instead of finishing with an actual, like a song. But it used to be a skip for me. It's not now. I will still listen to it right to the end. But I can only give it a 6. Brad? I'm
not going to time you out for that, Hoss, because I haven't really got a lot to say about it. I'm the same as you. I used to probably skip this track more so than listen to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, these days, I just let it play or play through. It's sometimes a skip for me. Look, it's a cheeky party vibe sort of thing going on. I'm not sure whether it's meant to be taken seriously or not, to be honest with you. There's like that sort of, there's some tasty guitar things going on, Alex having fun, and Mikey's pretty solid on it. All that chatter and party vibe things that are going on, that's why I don't think it's meant to be taken seriously. It's a 6 out of 10 for me, and it's probably borderline skip for me. Andrew?
Yeah, look, I think we're all on the same page here, and I'm just reading a couple of cats' rankings in the chat too. It's an oddball tune, isn't it? And there were a couple of theories there, about, some of the lyrics being directed to David Lee Roth about, some guy, telling me to wear some kind of clothes, because apparently that's what David Lee Roth was always concerned, walking like a brand new man or something. I can't remember the lyrics. I'm sure someone in the
yeah.
So, apparently, I don't know. No one's officially come out and said that, but kind of makes sense. Yeah. Look, it's an oddball tune. The only thing that really makes sense is, the solo. It's pretty good. That party vibe. I always skipped it for a long time because for a long time, guys, this album was played at beer drinking parties, so it was pretty hard to dance and drink beer and try and catch anything that you were trying to catch to with this kind of song. So if you know what I mean.
I think you made it very clear. Andrew.
Okay, all right, okay, well, it's an interesting song, but since Ed's passed, like a lot of us, we are renegotiating a lot of these albums, aren't we? And we're going back, and that's one of the great things that the 5150 show has with Hoss, that we can go back and talk about some of these songs from his perspective as well. I'm still going to give it a 7 out of 10. I probably won't skip it because I think Ed liked playing this song. I think someone in the chat too, guys, made a comment about it being a filler. Clearly it was. Clearly it's a filler song.
Of course, because it in its form and its format, it's just the furthest thing away from a 3.5-4 minute pop song, and actually Metal Mike's there in the chat saying always a skip, which I like. But actually, John Conklin brought up a good point, which is that Alex plays so back on this with those washy open hats. It's actually almost a tip of the hat to Bonham. And I never really thought about that before, John, but you're right. Now that I'm hearing it in my head, it's completely like a Led Zeppelin groove. It's really back. And, not only could those boys boogie at 300 beats a minute, but they could play the slowest, dirgy thing like we were talking about before, Brad, and amongst the best of them, But now that I think about it, it would almost make sense if Alex was just grooving on that slow Bonham kind of thing and Ed jumped on the synth.
That might be. It might be an old song. It might be an old song, Hoss.
Look, it could be. I mean, we know the guys got their influences from anywhere and everywhere. And you're right. Now that I think about it as a drum groove, it makes more sense that maybe Eddie didn't know how to write a pop song around a beat that slow, but he got on the Fairlight and went, go, dum, 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 da, dum. And everyone was like, oh, that's fun. So they just jammed it. And, I don't know. That makes more sense, actually, when I think about it that way. Yeah. Thanks, John. Yeah. I owe you one. Because now I hear it like an old Led Zeppelin song with a synthesizer in it. It's like Led Zeppelin meets The Who,
Something like off In Through the Outdoor by Led Zeppelin.
Yep. Yeah. Good one, John. Thank you for that, sir.
Good point.
As always, John the encyclopedia of Van Halen knowledge in the chat, putting me to shame, but I love it. Thank you, brother.
We don't profess to be experts, guys. We're just fans, and we're just here talking about music and this band, guys. So we're always here to be corrected and to share theories and opinions, aren't we, House and Brad?
100%.
Yeah, absolutely. I just like to reiterate what Brad just said. I mean, for me personally, I spent a lot of time, like we all did, absorbing the music and listening to it on cassette and then listening to it on CD, now listening to it back on vinyl again. But I never really was that kind of person when I was a teenager or in my 20s. When I was doing all that listening, I wasn't trying to find all the background information that I possibly could. I just wasn't really that way motivated. Yep. So yes, I definitely, compared to a lot of people, know bugger all about Van Halen in terms of these subtleties and the nuances, so that's why it's so much fun discussing it all with everyone in the chat, because you guys know all this stuff that is brand new news to me, so yeah, it's awesome, really awesome.
No, I agree. It's funny because we're finding out more about stuff anyway because of the books that are being released, and there's a lot more knowledge that's out there now that wasn't available before.
That's right. Go on.
Well, speaking about books, guys, so you guys need to go to your Facebook accounts and do a search for Steve Rosen and put your order in for his 400 to 500 page book, which will be out, Hoss, I think. Did he say March? Not far away. I think he's going to be shipping the end of March.
I believe that's right. Somewhere around then, yes. But that's going to be really awesome. I can't wait to get that. That's going to be very cool. Very cool indeed. I'd also like to give a special shout out to our very, very good friend, Bent Tom, who I know isn't well. So, yeah, Tom, if you end up seeing this at some point, we're all thinking of your brother.
Yeah, absolutely. Bent, and also Wazza. We also want to do a special shout out to Wazza, who follows us here on the 5150 show, and also the Sunday British Electric Blues show as well. He contributes to the show, so we appreciate that. So Bent, hell of a nice guy, another Van Halen scholar. That guy knows what set of strings Eddie used on February the 2nd, 1984, doesn't he?
Yes, that's absolutely right. Yeah. Very good. Well, I mean, ladies and gentlemen, that is the 5150 album, both sides A and B, country and Western. Who knew? But this has been very illuminating for sure for me. Even in the last week or so, doing a bit of boning up on some of the background has been lots of news to me. It's been fascinating.
Yeah. And like our rankings, like we've always said too, Hoss, our rankings are fluid. They change, don't they, Brad? Because you're picking up on stuff and you're hearing what someone's saying. You're hearing what John. So I'm going to go back and listen to Inside again, because of that Led Zeppelin connection. So when we talk about this album again, don't be surprised if we give it a 10.
Well, look, that's why. There's no good just the three of us sitting around. I mean, look, I would sit just with the two of you guys in a lounge room talking about Van Halen records. But truthfully, having all these beautiful people in the chat live with us, and it becomes just this great. It's like all of us at a pub on a Friday night, just talking about, and everyone knows a slightly different piece of information. And so between us all, it feels like we're plugging in all the pieces of a great, big, beautiful puzzle, and it's awesome.
Yeah. And what you guys in the chat don't realize too is that these videos, anything that's on YouTube, even if we delete this channel, the videos are still going to be around. But when they go and do some research on Van Halen in 50 years' time, they're going to be watching all the channels that are talking about Van Halen, but also reading everyone's comments here. So we're all participating organically because we're the true fans, we're the true scholars. Besides, obviously, some of the authoritative guys that are producing books now, like Brad and Chris, and Steve, the guys that knew Eddie. But besides them, the people that know what is actually going on and what actually went on are the organic fans, Hoss. And so we're all contributing to that here on our show. I mean that sincerely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And we all know you mean it sincerely because, all of us here are sincere, passionate music fans and big fans, of course, Van Halen, as well as other bands too. But having this forum is one of the best parts of what I would consider a pretty crummy 2 years for around the world. But what a beautiful thing to grow out of it is that everyone has been forced into these online communities, not forced, but you know what I mean?
Yep.
I mean, look, obviously, even in the chat here, I have so many new friends that I feel very fortunate to have, including, obviously the two of you guys, Andrew and Brad. But, and then, of course, all these great new friends in all parts of the world, in the UK, in the US now. And 2 years ago, before COVID and before Eddie passed, I didn't have any of those things. So, talk about lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah. And when we do the guitar show, the Van Halen guitar show, which is something that we've got planned coming up, we're going to talk about some of the guitars. We'll definitely get, and I've spoken to John off on the side. John's going to jump on and join us. He said, he'll join us, and we'll have Neil Daly on here too, and we'll just our channel will go through and give our contribution on a couple of these famous guitars that Eddie played, and we all celebrate just our way of, as John Conklin said, keeping Van Halen alive. It's everyone's job.
Oh, yeah. And Gretch Zeppelin in the chat there's just said in 50 years we'll have time machines so we can go to any concert live that we want. Can you imagine that? So you know what we should do? We should do a show one day on if you could go to any concert ever, which concert would it be and why?
Oh,
Imagine that.
don't give out any secrets. That's a great show.
Right. Well, we'll have to do it quickly then, gents. But anyway,
you guys didn't hear that.
right. Thank you, Gretch Zeppelin. You can for that idea. But yeah, no, you're right. That's wonderful. Oh man, me and my big mouth. Well,
well, we announced it first, so you know
that's exactly right, fella. That's exactly right.
You know, we're good at that. We always break ground. We break ground.
And Neil Daly, Neil, whenever you do, and you will at some point, of course, even if I have to pay for it, make it down under. You have hosts here to take you around and show you all the good spots and none of the lame spots, because it's very important. Any place you go to, you know, having someone to take you around is the best thing about going to any city, isn't it? Really, you know. I mean, I've traveled to cities where I went there touring with a band and didn't know anyone there, and really didn't like the city at all. But then the second time I went, I knew people there that took me around, and I fell in love with the place. It makes such a big difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll get you down here, Neil. Lovely.
Awesome. Hoss, as usual, this is the second week in a row that you've introduced an album. You've done a stellar job, brother. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you, Brad, for jumping in, brother, and your contribution too is fantastic, and everyone in the chat. You guys talk while I try and tee up this video, okay?
Yeah, so which one are you trying to tee up, Andrew? The original one from weeks ago, the long one? The one with Nina on it?
Just hold on.
Because you're welcome to play that if you prefer. I don't mind. It's up to you.
Just give me a second, brother.
No problem. I could do some shout outs if you like while you're finding that.
Yeah, I was going to say, do some shout outs, Hoss.
Well, we've got the who's who of very special human beings in this chat today. We've got Mark Dillon, Christopher Livesauer. I did see your comment in the chat just before, Christopher, but I forgot what it was. My apologies. Q Caldwell. There it is.
Sorry.
Q Caldwell, Metal Mike, Paul Martino, Neil Daly, of course, from Daily Custom Designs, Jimmy Ray Hawkins, Mark Dillon, Robert, Michael also, C.S., of course, Teresa, all the way in Brazil, Pete Drummond. Hey, Pete, how you doing, brother? Pete you guys have not seen Pete play drums yet, but you will. Him and I are doing something very, very special. It's a secret right now. And we've been Pete, we haven't been dragging our feet. I've been dragging my feet. He's been ready and waiting. So if you're still in the chat, hey, Pete, Mikey Mojo, Gino, Nina Ferro, Voice from the Heavens, John Conklin, thanks for all your depth of knowledge, brother. And now we're all going to listen to Inside differently because we're going to think of Bonham because of you. So thank you, John.
Yes.
Mike Rogers, Leo Safro, Danny Eddy, Arvin, Charlie S., Robert Montgomery, Kurt, Jay Hannon was in the chat earlier. Don't know if he still is. Hey, Jay, if you are. Helene, Johnny Bean, Mark Tanner, John ZD351. Thank you, John, for all your hard work. Thomas Santiago, I know, has already said good night, but shouting out, of course, anyway. Tim Thomas, Nelson Rodriguez, Kelly, Gretch Zeppelin, Charmaine, and, of course, Ellen.
You are fantastic, bro. You are the shout-out king. I'm going to drop... I'm going to drop us all out of the stream and see if that makes a difference in playing the video. Okay, so
it might. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to drop us out, and let's see how it goes. And do you want to say goodbye now because it might be good?
Yeah, let's do that, fellas. See you, everybody. Okay. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure.
Thumbs up, subscribe.